All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining us today as we give a webinar on MassDEC's new air source heat pump rebate portal. So today we're going to do some brief introductions and then go over our incentive structure, which did slightly change as we launched the portal. Then we'll navigate you through our website, spend a good part of the time actually looking at the new portal, and then talk about some of the new incentive adders, specifically the income-based rebate adders and the electric resistance displacement adders. And we'll finish up with some quick notes on how to become a participating installer. So first things first, introductions. There's three of us on the call today. Right now, I'm Meg Howard speaking. You can see my email address. I also have my colleagues Beverly Craig and Anna Hagedorn with me, and we'll all speak for different parts of the presentation. In terms of logistics, we have muted all the lines, so we'd ask if you have questions at any point, please type them into the question box as part of GoToWebinar, and we'll, at the end, kind of read through those questions and answer them. And did want to note that this webinar is being recorded and we will send it around to all the attendees afterwards. So with that, let's jump in to our new incentive structure. So this is the table for both the residential rebates as well as the small commercial rebates. For residential, you'll see there's the same base rebates that you're used to for customers who are in the below 120%, but above 80% of the state median income. They get $800 per head or per single ton. And then for any customer who is below 80% of the income-based rebate, they get $1,000 per single head or per ton. And that's different. We used to give $1,500, but only if those customers also had electric resistance. So those customers will still get the $1,500. They'll get the $500 ER displacement adder plus the $1,000. But now any customer, regardless of their existing fuel type, will get $1,000 if they're in that income bracket. Additionally, any customer who has electric resistance, regardless of their income bracket, will get some adder for displacing that electric resistance. And then there's a similar structure on the small commercial side, just slightly higher caps where those projects can be up to 20 tons or 20 single heads before they're kicked over to our commercial scale program, which is not part of this portal. So now I'm going to hand it over to Anna, and she's going to quickly walk through navigating our website.
Hi there. My name is Anna Hagedorn. I'm a project administrator on the residential and small scale commercial air source heat pump program. I'm going to show you how to navigate to different places on our website where you can access the application portal. So this is our website homepage, which many of you may be familiar with. If you select Get Clean Energy, you'll see a few options pop up. For the residential program, if you're submitting an application, you would select Get Clean Energy for your home. It'll take you to this landing page for residential technology programs that we offer support for. Alternatively, you could start at the home page and use the search or use the left-hand bar, the menu bar, and select residential again. It'll take you to the same residential page where you'll select clean heating and cooling. Air source heat pumps are the first technology listed on the clean heating and cooling page. You can select apply now. This will direct you to our air source heat pump program page. On this landing page, there is a link at the top to the application portal. Additionally, you can open the How Do I Apply accordion, which will open up a smaller page that shows you another link that says, click here to submit an application for your residential air source heat pump rebate. And this brings you to the application portal.
So for the portal itself, this is kind of the landing page. You'll notice there's a list right up top of what documents you need if you're a residential project or if you're a commercial project. So hopefully as either you or your customers are getting ready to submit applications, there's a little mental checklist for everything you need to make sure you have. There's also a need help button we wanted to draw your attention to up top. If you click on that, this little pop-up will show up, and you can give a call to that number for any existing applications or just questions about future applications. And the call center is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the week, and then 8 to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. So the first thing you need to answer on this portal is, are you a residential or commercial customer? If you are a residential customer, it will ask you to select your income eligibility tier. So the drop-down choices will be less than 80%, between 80% and 120, greater than 120, or prefer not to say, which is fine for any customer. If your customers are wondering which of those brackets they're in, they can click the question mark that's to the right of the question, and it will pop up this table, which shows based on your household size, what is the threshold for the different income levels. So as you can see, and we'll go into this a little bit more later on in the webinar, but these are, pretty high thresholds for some households. So definitely worth taking a look at. And then if you do select that you're in one of those brackets, let's say here I've selected between 80 to 120% of the state median income, you'll next be asked how you'd like to verify your income. And so you'll see there the first choice is you can choose not to pursue income verification, even if you think you're in that portal, in that income bracket, you can choose not to go forward, which would mean you wouldn't have to submit any other documentation, and you also wouldn't get the higher rebate level. And then if you do, if you do want to pursue income verification, there's 4 methods, which we'll go into a little bit later. And then on the commercial side, you'll just be asked if you're a for-profit, nonprofit, public, or affordable housing. So, business, like a restaurant, they're for-profit. School, that would be public. You just need to select that, and then there's some different documentation you may need if you're public or nonprofit or affordable housing. So we're going to go through the actual application portal as if we're doing a residential application. It's very similar on the commercial side. So the first kind of accordion that will pop up is just some basic information about the system owner. And I just wanted to highlight here that this first accordion is asking for the mailing address. So if they want their rebate check sent to, in this case, I've typed in a PO box, put the PO box here, and then you'll see in the next accordion there's a place to actually put the project site address. So this is the next accordion where you put the project site address. If those are the same, you can just check the boxes at the top, and then you don't have to put them in twice. You just need an electric bill. But remembering in our case, they weren't the same. We had a PO box for Jane Doe's mailing address. So up here, we put Jane Doe's actual street address, 123 Main Street, and then we added her electric account number and her electric service provider. The next thing they're going to be asked is who the participating installer was. So any of you that have gotten listed on our website, you should be in this drop-down menu along with all of your installers who have completed the training. So you'll see there is a choice. The first thing you can submit is unknown company. So if you're not on the website, but you've done the training, your customer or you can select unknown company, and then we will follow up to make sure you've done the training and you're eligible, but you can still go forward. However, ultimately, you won't get the check paid unless the installer has completed all the program requirements. But you'll see there are lots of you listed on this drop-down list. So we've gone ahead and selected one for this Jane Doe application, Stefani Plumbing and Heating with Tom Stefani, and then you'll see it automatically fills in the address for that installer. The next thing we'll do is put in which products were actually installed as part of the job. This is slightly different than the old Excel application where you put in the model number. Here we're kind of basing it on the AHRI number. So if you click on that hyperlink there, it will pull up a list of all the AHRI numbers by manufacturer and model number. So you can always use that as a reference to figure out which AHRI number is applicable to this project. We've put in a hypothetical single head here, and then we also, so going back, you can see there's an option to put in that one single head. Because Jane Doe is in the 80 to 120% income level, she's getting $800 for that single head. And then you'll see the button to add another product. So let's say she had a single head and a multi-head installed. This shows what, we've added another product, put in a second AHRI number, and you'll see the rebate for that amount. One thing we wanted to draw your attention to, in this case, Jane Doe's maximum rebate would be $3,200, which the incentive for the single head and the multi-head is less than that. But as the portal is currently configured, the total that's shown on the right there can potentially be greater than what's in the bolded text, but the bolded text would always take precedence. So just be sure to look out for that cap. If the per unit rebate adds up greater than the cap is going to be what applies. Next, we go on to general survey questions. So we'll see asking, it's an existing building versus new construction, 3 people live there, it's 1,200 square feet. As I'm sure all of you know, we require that an energy audit was held within the last 4 years or upcoming in the next 6 months. So we'll need a date for that, unless this is a condo or apartment in a 5 or more unit building. We'll ask the same questions we've asked about previous air conditioning and heating method. Are the heat pumps the primary source of heating for the building? In this case, our Jane Doe is planning to use her new air source heat pumps as her main source of heating, but she is still keeping her oil heat backup. So you can say, yes, it's primary, but she'll have oil as backup. So in this case, you wouldn't need a manual J. You only need a manual J if she's also tearing out her oil, so there's no backup heat source, in which case you also need to submit the heat load calculation. So we all know that Jane Doe is going to have enough heat in the winter. Then, in this case, there were 2 outdoor units with 3 indoor heads. She heard about it by word of mouth. This checkbox is to confirm that she will use the heat pumps for heating during the heating season, which is a program requirement. We're not rebating projects that are just being put in for cooling. And then finally entering the total installed cost. So now we're at the point where she needs to decide how to submit it. The first choice we have here is online submission, and we expect this will probably be the most common. This is kind of the default, and what you need to do here is choose the files you want to upload. So this can all be a combined file, like a combined PDF that has everything, or several different documents. You'll just see to the bottom right a list of what she'll need to submit, and then some of the last ones are if applicable. So in this case, she needs a copy of her electric bill, she needs a paid invoice showing the model numbers and the install date. She is doing the income adder, so she'll need some kind of income verification. She doesn't need the manual J because she's still keeping that backup oil. And I don't think she's displacing electric resistance, so she won't need anything for that. But we will talk about those adders and documentation in a little bit. Another option would be to submit by email. So if she does that, what happens is all the information she's filled out kind of automatically gets submitted to the portal, but she can, let's say she doesn't have her invoice with her now. She will get an email that will say basically this, in this case, be hello, Jane, thanks for submitting. And you'll see in the second paragraph there, it says, once you're ready, you need to reply to this email with the files attached. So just by replying the email and attaching the files, they'll get linked with her application. The third choice you have is by mail. So what you could do is you can print this online form, or actually when you hit submit, they'll have the data, but you can just mail in your invoice and electric bill if that's easier for your customers. And if they do go by that option, what they'll do is get this email that will give them instructions and a mailing address of where to mail in their project documentation. So when they've picked one of those methods of how to submit, the very last thing they need to do is agree to the terms and conditions. We have two different options here. One is for a system owner who, if Jane Doe is filling this out herself, she would check the first box that she agrees to the terms and conditions. If Stefani Plumbing and Heating is filling out for her, they would check the box that says they've talked about all this with her. And in either case, the terms and conditions link will bring you to the same page, which has both Mass CEC's terms and conditions up top, and then EFI, which is Energy Federation, Inc., and they're the ones who are operating this portal for us. And so both of our terms and conditions are here. Specifically, Mass CEC's terms and conditions will look like what you used to have to get your customers to actually sign. So many of you may be familiar with what these documents look like. And I just draw your attention to the last page, which used to be the signature page. Some key things that your customer is agreeing to, that they've had the energy audit, that they are going to use this for heating. So those are some of the key things we want to draw their attention to. So in this case, it's Jane Doe filling it out herself. She checks that top box, and then she hits proceed. And the last thing we wanted to draw your attention to in terms of the portal, when she hits proceed, she will get email confirmation that will have a number, a project number. And so at any point, she can go and check the status of her project by typing in that project number as well as her zip code. So this is what it will pop up. If she puts in her project number and zip code, it will say, Jane Doe, you submitted rebates for these 2 units. And then you'll see that a reminder about the cap, and then status of where it is now. So her status is e-submit, which means she's electronically submitted her rebate and it's waiting, the next step would be that it's being processed. So that's it for the portal overview. I'm next gonna hand it over to my colleague Beverly to talk about our income adders. If you have questions now about the portal, go ahead and type them in and we'll get to them all at the end.
So hi everyone, I'm going to talk a little bit about low and moderate income adders. So these are the income-based incentives that are above and beyond the standard rebates, and they do really add up. The difference between a standard rebate and one with incentives for those below 80% of state median income can be as high as $1,500. And because this can really make a difference for your customer, we would really encourage you to let your customers know about the income-based incentives and encourage them to apply for them. Seniors often qualify for our income-based adders, and many in the western part of the state qualify. Also, a lot of people who don't think that they qualify actually do, and that's because incomes can be relatively high. We have 2 tiers, the 80% of state median income and the 120% of state median income. And it is based on family size, but just to give you a sense of how high the incomes can go, a family of 4 can have an income of $132,000 and still qualify for the moderate income adders. So this is an income eligibility chart. This is something that we would encourage you to put in front of all of your customers so that they have an idea whether they might qualify or not. So on the left-hand side is the household size. They would choose how many are in their household and take a look at the different categories and see if their total income, total household income would fall beneath these different levels. And this is, it is total household income. So on somebody's tax return on a 1040, that would be line 22. And it's looking at the last year's, most recent year's tax that's available. So there's 3 different ways that you can qualify for these income-based adders. First, if somebody has an R2 lower electric rate, also if they have a fuel assistance letter, or they can use our income verification portal. So this is an example of somebody's electric bill and National Grid, and it's showing where the red arrow is that they are on an R2 rate. So if someone submits this as documentation, we will know that someone's below 80% of state median income, and they'll get the highest rebate that we have. This is a fuel assistance letter, and so again, somebody can submit this, and it will let us know that they're below 80% of state median income. The third way is to use our income verification portal. And really, it's a pretty easy process. The client does not have to send in their tax return. That's a myth that I think might be out there for some people. Instead, they fill out, they go to massceciverify.com. They create a login, and they fill out 3 very basic screens. And I'll show you the 3 screens. The first one is just name and address. And actually, when you fill in your login information, you fill that information in once, and this automatically populates here as well. Then Social Security number information on the second page. And finally, some questions about your household size. So it's just those 3 pages. So what happens is our third-party verifier checks with the IRS based on that information, looks at the last year's tax return. They pull the total income line 22, and our third-party verifier lets us know if a client is income qualified and at what level. We never actually get the client's income information, just confirmation that they do qualify, and so that adds some security protections and some privacy, deals with some privacy issues by having a third-party verifier. So we want to make sure that you give your customers the income eligibility chart and make sure that to let them know that the process is simple and short to get income verified.
Great. This is Anna again. I'm going to spend some time talking about our electric resistance displacement adder, which has been introduced as part of this portal rollout. This was also alluded to on that early slide showing the revised incentive structure. The intention behind this adder comes from the fact that electric resistance is the most expensive and produces the most greenhouse gas emissions of any heating source in Massachusetts. As the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, it is part of our mission to identify and eliminate the most emissive heavy sources that contribute to heating in the state. So this is really a win-win for you and your customers, and for the state. You can save more money and help us achieve our greenhouse gas targets. The way that you can verify this adder, there are 3 possible verification methods. You can have an electric bill with a space heating rate code. In the image to the right, the boxed text shows you an example rate code. One for Eversource would be a delivery rate of 86, which is residential heating. A second verification method is a Mass Save Home Energy Assessment report, which indicates that the home has electric resistance heat. Many of our system owners who apply for rebates through our program also apply for the Mass Save audit, and so may have that home energy assessment available to them. The third and final method of verification for this adder would be to submit 2 photographs of the previous electric resistance heating system and an electric bill that shows a higher electrical usage in the winter months as compared to the shoulder seasons. So seeing that bump during the winter is an indication and confirmation that the electrical resistance is being used as space heating in addition to just electricity.
And the very last thing we want to talk about before we get to your questions was just a reminder about how to become a participating installer. So for now, the process is the same. It is noted on the portal homepage that you need to email to the same email address you've been using, ashp@masscec.com, both a signed primary installer agreement, as well as proof of completion of manufacturer training for at least 4 hours within the last 5 years for the manufacturer's products you'd like to install. And just to reiterate that a little bit, if you have, let's say, Mitsubishi training and you want to do Carrier products, we also need the Carrier training to start giving rebates for the Carrier jobs you do as well. So that process is the same for now. It shortly will actually be handled through the same portal. So stay tuned in the next couple of weeks or so. You should see this portal change over. Instead of saying email it to ASHP, you should just be able to click there And then I think most of you on the call are all participating installers already, but if you have new technicians in your company that you want to add to the portal, they can go on through this and submit their proof of training and the primary installer agreement form. So in the meantime, email it to us, but stay tuned, should shortly be submitting those through the portal. So that's everything we have planned for today. We're going to just see what kind of questions you all have for us. So we're looking in the question box here. So give us a minute here as we go through the questions, and we'll try and answer them in the order they were received. Okay, so the first question we have is, what about old applications? That's a great question. So this portal went live on October 31st. Any application that you emailed in to us at Mass CEC before then, we're still going to be handling it the old way, so you don't need to go reapply through the portal. We'll just be reviewing it. If we followed up, we needed some extra documentation, you can still email it to us. So anything before Halloween this year, you don't need to do anything about, but unless we, of course, ask you for follow-up, and then we'll need that extra documentation. But anything, any new projects as of this October 31st should go into the portal. And then we got another question, just to reiterate, we will send around a recording of this webinar to everyone who was participating today. Oh, and a copy of the slides. Good point. Then we have a question about the deadline for this program. Does it run until funds are exhausted, or is there a deadline? So we don't have a fixed deadline yet, although, you know, of course, okay. What we've said in the past, and is still true, is if we ever were to either be planning to end the program or even just lower our rebate levels from what they currently are, we would give 3 months notice. If we're ever going to lower the rebate levels, or certainly if we're going to end it, we'll give at least 3 months notice that that's going to happen.
There's a second part of this question. Is there a deadline for equipment installation? No, you can apply through this program after the install date, up to 90 days after the project has been completed. So that has been true since the program was started and remains true with the portal. So when you go to apply for a residential or a small scale commercial rebate, you may do so after you've already completed the project and it's been installed, but you have to do so within 90 days of the project completion date.
Then we have a question about clarifying what we mean by electric resistance. I think that's possible. That may have been clarified when we discussed that adder in more depth. But if a home was heating with electricity and had the heat pump installed, they are eligible for the electric resistance displacement adder if they can show us that they were heating with electric resistance before having the heat pump installed through one of those methods that we talked about.
Our next question is, what verification is needed if an energy audit is scheduled within 6 months after installation? It's a great question. We would ask, right now we ask for an email confirmation that the system owner has contacted an entity to perform the audit, and that that entity will be reaching out to schedule said audit within a certain time frame. So one that comes to mind is we get a lot of confirmation emails submitted from Cape Light Compact, saying that you've contacted us and somebody from Rise Engineering will be reaching out to you within 4 to 6 weeks to schedule this audit. And that is an acceptable form of verification to show that the audit will occur within the next 6 months.
And if your customer does already have that date scheduled, even if it's in the future, they can just give us the date. So in the case of Cape Light, there's always a delay about scheduling, so we need that email confirmation. if you actually have the date, you can just put it into the portal when it asks when the energy audit will be. We'll occasionally spot check some of those dates, either in the past or the future. But for most of you, we're taking your words that that's the date that it's scheduled or has occurred on. The next question is about the income-based rebate. Should they include a child's income if the child is over 18?
And the answer is yes. You do need to include anybody who's over 18 as part of your total household income.
Then our next question is, would the customer still receive a 1099 form? None of your residential customers should be getting a 1099 form from us, but we do issue 1099 for any of the small commercial entities that participate in our rebate program, which is why we need W-9s from those customers. The next question we have is a hypothetical about a rental property with electric resistance heat. And rental properties are eligible. They need to be occupied year-round, so they need to have that year-round heating to be eligible for the Mass CEC rebate. But you would just submit it as a normal application. If you wanted the check to go to a different address, you just need to make sure that you entered the correct mailing address and then put in the system address separately. So we'd be looking for the electric bill you submit to be for the actual rental property and match the address for the project. And then there could be a different mailing address if it's a rental property. Oh, okay, this is a good question. If your company is the one who does the paperwork, so now you're going to be the ones doing this portal for your customers, which is great. You can see we set it up with a checkbox at the end to identify either you're the customer filling it out or you're the installer. But if you choose that email option, can you put your installer's email so that they can submit the attachment? What I say here is we'd really prefer if you could do the online option where you have the attachments ready to go and submit them at that time, because we do want the customer's email in that spot where it says what's the customer's email, so that we can reach out to them if we have any questions or need to contact them. So we really do want their email there, and would highly recommend that you only apply when you have all the documents ready to be uploaded and just do the online version. If you have any particular case, I would urge you to call that number that we saw at the beginning that's just the Need Help button on the portal, and you can talk to the people at the call center, and they should figure out a solution for you. We also had a question about sorry, one second. Getting our next question here. Good question. Can the status be checked for any of the older applications prior to the launch of the portal? So that's any application that came in before October 31st. Unfortunately, we're still on our kind of old email analog system. There's no way to check those statuses like there will be for the new portal, or like there is for the new portal. So for those, you're just going to have to be patient. We are still working through those with a bit of a backlog. So we're currently, I think, about 7 weeks behind. So we're processing applications we received in mid-September at this point. So we realize it's been a bit of a delay and frustration, and one of the reasons we are going to this new portal system, we hope going forward, should be a lot more timely. And then we had a question just wanting to confirm the only time we request a manual J is if the heat pump is the sole source of heat, and that's correct. Only if you say that there's no backup source of heat, then we'll ask for a manual J, and that's just to give everyone comfort that the heat pumps will give enough heat for the home.
Our next question is if the cutoff date for emailed applications is based on the installation date or the email date. The answer to this question is that it's kind of both, insofar as the 90-day deadline applies to how many days it's been since the install date until you submitted the application. So that amount of time has to be less than 90 days, if I'm understanding this question correctly.
Yeah, if we haven't answered the question, please feel free to.
Please let us know if that was not what you were looking for.
The next question was about the terms and conditions. Can that be printed to give to customers? Yes, definitely. Mass CECs is in the form of a PDF on that link, so it should be easy to print out and give to customers.
There's also a button on that page to print this form.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely can, and we appreciate and encourage that. What do we do if there's no energy audit at the time of submitting a rebate and they also haven't gotten that email saying that they're in the scheduling queue? Unfortunately, that is a requirement. Well, it is a requirement of our program. So to submit for the rebate application, you will need to have an energy audit at least scheduled, or at a minimum be in the scheduling queue. So that's something that your customers will need to do in order to be eligible for our rebate program. We got a question about like some error messages that popped up. So if anything's filled out incorrectly for the portal, what will happen when you go to hit submit or proceed, I think, you'll get a little red triangle with an exclamation mark that will pop up next to where there's information that's incorrect. And so you will go and fix it, and then you should be able to hit proceed. If you have any questions, you can either call that number, that's the need help number, the 866 number that we looked at the beginning. You can also email the team, which the new email address we'll send out to everyone on this call, but it's masscec_rebates@efi.org. .com. Okay. We'll send that out to, so you have it in writing. But this particular question is asking how they can know if the application was received. If you have any question about if it was received, please feel free to give a call and someone can just confirm that with you.
How long does it take to get income verified? Sorry, I think that was a little quiet. Our next question is on how long it takes to become income verified. Potentially, I'm guessing through our iVerify portal. Beverly, do you know the average about time?
So it usually takes about a week. There are occasions when people have put in their address different than what the IRS has, and there's a going back and forth process to get that exactly right. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but usually about a week.
Then the next question is, would the heat pump have to be used as a sole source of heat throughout the winter, or could the client still use electric resistance as a backup?
The answer to this question is it does not have to be the only source of heat. Part of our program requirement is that the heat pump be used for heating throughout the heating season, but that does not necessarily mean it has to be the only source of heat throughout the heating season. There can be some form of backup. In fact, most of the projects we see are some form of supplemental heat using the heat pump at certain temperatures during the season, which makes economic sense. And every time it will be more cost effective for your customers to use an air source heat pump rather than electrical resistance to heat their homes, no matter what temperature it is. But the answer is yes, they can still have a backup heat source.
Especially if they're just anxious about, is this new heat pump really going to be enough? Depending how you size it, it definitely should be, but if they're anxious, they can certainly leave in the electric resistance as backup. The next question is, are out-of-state owners of local vacation properties eligible for the residential rebates? Yes, they are. Just coming back to the caveat, Anna just mentioned that the home has to be heated throughout the winter. So this couldn't be someone who, closes up and goes to Florida for the winter, but if it's a home they do come visit throughout the winter, or else maybe they rent it out to, through some vacation site. If it's occupied throughout the winter, then yes, they can get our rebate. And the reason is that they are paying Massachusetts electric utility bill. So as long as they're in a participating electric utility, they are eligible for our rebate. And we have a question, would a tax-exempt project like a church be eligible for the small-scale rebate?
Yes, they would apply as a nonprofit in this case. We've had several houses of worship apply through our program. So the answer is yes, they're eligible for the small-scale rebate as long as they don't exceed the capacity threshold, which is 20 single head systems or a combined 20 tons of capacity. So any project that is tax exempt would also have, and would be applying as a nonprofit, would have to submit a copy of their tax exempt certificate as verification, which would be prompted through the portal. But the answer is yes, they're eligible. They can apply through the portal. There is additional verification, and they should be mindful of the size of the project so that they're going through the proper program.
And then they also will get a higher incentive level than the base rebate. So they would get $800 per single head or per ton for the multi-heads. Next, we have a project, if it was installed mid-October, but the rebate application hasn't been emailed in yet, does it now need to go through the portal? Yes. Yes. But we hope that that should make everyone, including your lives, easier. Then we have a question about, is there a way to show the higher rebate levels to the client if they're doing the income verification? One thing we're kind of working on updating is a program one-pager that would have kind of the whole incentive structure on it, and would also have that income threshold table we've been talking about. So we want you to all feel free to use that as a tool to talk with your clients and say, here's the program requirements. You can see there's these income-based thresholds. If you think this applies, let us know, or fill it out yourself. Don't let us know. So that's one way you kind of put that in front of people. That's probably our best recommendation for now, but we know other companies out there have kind of come up with their own custom handouts or talking points to put this information in front of their customers in a sensitive and thoughtful way. So that's all the questions we've gotten now. We'll stay on the line for just another minute if anyone's furiously typing one more question. Oh, the follow-up question, when would the one-pager be ready? I think by next week. We're kind of working on a final draft now, so I think it should be ready by next week, and we'll send it out to everyone on this call and also just our list of participating installers. And to reiterate, we will share a copy of the recorded webinar with everyone who's joined us today, as well as a copy just of the slides. So don't worry if you missed something, it will all be here.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us on this call today. And if you have questions about anything we discussed, feel free to reach out to Meg Howard, Beverly Craig, or myself. Our emails are at the beginning of this presentation.
Thanks everyone, have a great day.